our ordinary human goodwill is being leveraged against us. That's all there is to it, that we're being preyed upon because we're busy, we're stressed, we're occupied, and we're divided, and growing ever more so. And because the resources on this planet are not infinite, they're not, they won't just continue to, they would have if we hadn't. Basically, we interrupted nature, the balance of nature. We interfered and we presumed. And every time that's happened, the people who have lost their way in that way have been undone, have been struck down, have failed. And every time, then just a few have gone on to create anew. And we have been chosen to be sacrificed. That's all there is to it. I know that may sound crazy. It's taken me 5 years of literally daily study of the human condition to reach this determination that basically plagues me morning, noon, and night, and finally makes it so that there's no peace for me outside of the full disclosure of the conclusion that I think any person free of selfish motives and the hubris of separation, I think we separate ourselves at our peril, and there's a class of people who have separated themselves so entirely that it's possible for them to sacrifice humanity for what they perceive to be a greater good. And if we don't face this reality, then we're going to be ground into fertilizer for the very few to populate their new world, however they envision it. I don't know. I'm not privy to their minds, but I know that we've sacrificed ourselves to the machine of progress, and we have allowed non-human, which is to say businesses and governments and other entities that are not human, but that are determining the future, or lack of humanity. We've allowed non-human entities to be the arbiters of our destiny, because people who were raised basically in a way that isn't supportive of true humanity, because, well, the bottom line is that we factory raised a generation, and we sacrificed a generation to idea that the most important thing was the individual's right to behave however they felt they should be behaving in any given moment, and let the devil take the hindmost. And so we put our children in daycare, and far too many of them have reached adulthood without the ability to bond. Therefore, they're unable to emote or to feel compassion. Sorry, I'm going through sticker bushes with my dog. They don't have the ability to feel compassion. And it's honestly not anybody's fault if that happens to you. It's just because you didn't bond with anyone. And what's going on now is similar to what's going on with me right now. I'm walking on a trail that I have walked on 100 times, but it's not been maintained. And because of the homeless situation in this city, people have been neglecting these woods because they're filled with tents and, woods have become little Hoovervilles. And so nobody's maintaining them, and I have to come up here and cut this trail free of its sticker bushes. Anyway, the point is just that we've disconnected from responsibility because we were told to trust the science, trust the professionals, trust the government, trust the whatever. And we gave up our locus of control. And it's just not a sustainable practice. And it's really quite simple to reverse, but it won't happen if we don't acknowledge the truth of our situation. We are being driven into catastrophic fallout for most of us, but the ones who make the policies and the laws and the sensual delights that distract us from the truth, they're not going to, well, some of them will, but they don't believe that they will because they're hubris. But if you have enough money and you can build a well-stocked bunker, and you see that the planet is running out of resources, and you don't realize that the greatest resource that we have is our own creative goodwill. If you don't know that, then what's to stop you from thinking that your best hope is to eliminate as many of the drains on the resources as you possibly can? Basically, it sounds kind of cold-blooded. Like I said, it's taken me 5 years to accept that anybody could be this evil. But I think it just makes practical sense for some people, especially people who have been raised sans empathy, without the ability to truly know that other people hurt and matter, And so it all feels awful because it is awful, but it could change literally in an instant if we all just turned around, started walking the opposite direction, back to where we left our souls, back to where we left our self, the self that we came into this world to fully express. And anything other than that, anything less than that, anything beyond that is the same as telling the giver of life that we know better, how this life should be spent, and you can only get away with that for so long. And the so long is dependent upon your support network. So people with a larger support network, families, whatnot, we'll get along with it longer and make it look possible to the rest of us. Meanwhile, the ones who know that that doesn't work have no voice, have no power. They're down on the ground. And everybody's stepping over them because they're being told that they did something wrong, but they didn't do anything wrong. They just grew up in a system that rattled them into a state of such discombobulation that they literally can't function. And so we need to restore equilibrium to the human race, or we need to accept that we are a failed species, that this iteration of human beings has gone as far as it's going to go, because we're obviously not going to evolve if we continue to act the way we're acting. And it seems daunting, but that's only because we haven't started. I know this from personal experience, that I was hopeless and miserable and going nowhere fast and blaming everybody else. And then it was like something just whispered in my ear and said, You're better than this. And your kids don't deserve the world that they're inheriting. They've done nothing to bring this on themselves, this hell that's coming if you don't do something. If you don't stand up with some righteous outrage, not just noise, but righteous indignation in the face of corruption, and ideas for progress in the face of failure and further malingering and drifting by just confused people is all. We're all going about our lives doing the best that we can, but we're being outdone. Like Martin Luther King said, we'll have peace when we learn to organize as effectively as those who profit from war, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but profit will always out, and there are those who profit from war. There are those who profit from corruption. It's not us, but we've become the powerless. Well, that's because we believed the lies, and we believed that we were a competitive species when actually we evolved as a collaborative species. That's the only way that we evolved to where we got to. And then as soon as we got comfortable and no longer needed each other, we stopped cooperating and acting out our competition. We stopped bringing out the best in each other, and we stopped reaching for the best in ourselves. We started hoarding and hiding and lying and keeping, and we built a bunch of dams everywhere where we were supposed to have just flow. And now I've got people who know and want to charge a bunch of money for others to find out. And I'm sorry, but I think that if the information is as old as time, and it is, regarding how to live an honest and good life, and that's all it takes. That's all it would take for us to be able to see clearly, is to clear our minds of shame. And the only way to do that is to, like Buddha said, cease to do evil. Well, it's not as complicated as we're allowing it to be, and it shouldn't be profit driven. It should just be a matter of what's the greatest common good. And the greatest common good is that we ease suffering, and we amplify possibility and potential, and we become creative geniuses, and then we solve our problems. And the only way to do that is to work together to even each other out, to call each other out, but with kindness and compassion, but just like, no, that's not going to work. That idea stinks. Okay, fine. What's your idea? I mean, we're allowing the lunatics to burn down the asylum around our ears. And we just need to stop. We need to stop in our tracks, turn around and go in the other direction, find our character, our integrity, our ability to be authentic. That's where that lives. It lives within our character, which we sold off piecemeal in order to fit in. And then fitting in just made us miserable and greedy and competitive. And so the cycle just continues. Well, if we turn it, then we can start all that momentum going in a better direction. But we have to decide that we don't want to go down in flames as a failed species. We just have to decide. And nobody can decide for anybody else. So I suggest that before we let many more days pass in which we become more entrenched in this failure model, and before more and more people die and kill to support a lie, that we just decide that we want to do better and that we will do better because we can. And give that a try. Give kindness a try. Give humility a chance. Thank you.